from sort of the ground up. You know, you mentioned that it kind of calls back to those blue-white Stoneblade decks from a few years ago, but he won a classic a few years ago in Baltimore with a deck he came up with himself, and now he's made it all the way to the elimination rounds against a teammate. What more can you ask for?
So on the top, we do have Austin Collins on the left. If Harlan was here last round, if you were with us an hour ago, taking that win in 2-1. So did snag the 8th seed here on camera, and we're going to bring him back to see if he can make it through the elimination rounds.
Rate that Pikachu hat. That's a Pikachu hat, right? I hope so. For the sake of this
I don't think it is.
Oh, no,
it's not. It's Supreme. So I give it a 8 out of 10, but 0 Pikachus.
I'd like it more if it were Pikachu's. It's going to lose some points.
Well, on the Pikachu scale, I don't think it's doing very well.
Maybe not in your world. Battle of the Ball Caps.
I do like Austin on the Battle of the Caps. So Austin's got the flat brim going. Harlan's got it curved.
Just a good old-fashioned hat. I like it. I like the classic look.
Harlan's is functional. Austin's is decorative. See, they're telling different stories. And here we go. Both players keeping here. Austin starting off a turn 1 Delver. Harlan's going to waste it away. And Austin's on the other land. He plays Wasteland for the turn of his own. Attacks in for 1.
And playing that Wasteland before Harlan plays his land is something that may end up punishing Collins, since Harlan knows to play around the Wasteland now.
Right. My guess is Austin didn't have a choice if he made a play like that. His Delver is lost to Swords to Plowshares, but Austin does have another land. It is Scalding Tarn.
And the reason that we just saw that turn 1 Wasteland, nothing else from Harlan, is with these low land count Delver strategies, if you don't let them start casting their cantrips, it's very likely they only have, say, a Wasteland and a bunch of spells to go with that one land they drew, and they might just be out of the game for several turns.
So there's a small percent, a 10%er maybe, that Austin kept a one land hand, and if he did, you might as well just get him on it.
Honestly, I think 10% is low. I think that is a generous estimate in Collins' favor. We saw it happen during the Swiss rounds where Collins just didn't play Magic for 4 turns.
Austin does like the cards he sees off Ponder, and I see grabbing a basic island of his own.
This is him respecting back to basics out of Fear's deck.
Yeah, so deck lists are face up. Back to basics are in Fear's sideboard. Despite being a basic land heavy deck, he does have 3 Wastelands of his own, which Austin's got to respect here.
Absolutely. There's a point where if you're just trying to cast a bunch of cantrips, you just want to make sure you get to cast all your spells.
Post Ponder, Austin will Brainstorm. This is an end-step Brainstorm. You don't see it too often. He does have the fetch land in his hand ready to go.
Right, and the reason that you would cast this on your end step instead of during your main phase is if you're already pretty content with the cards in your hand and you don't want to shuffle that many of them away, then at this point you're just trying to fill your graveyard a little bit, hit your land drops, and filling your graveyard is going to help fuel your Terramanders that come up later.
Exactly, that's something we saw earlier. This Delver deck by Austin Collins plays differently with its Brainstorms in that he uses them more aggressively because of the card Terramander. It's a 3 of in his deck list that he really wants to use the adaptability on.
Exactly.
See, of the cards he put back, he's going to drew both of them, just made Scalding Tarn. He's drawn he's drawn one of them. See if he cracks the fetch land. Now he's going to reset the top of his deck.
This is one of those situations where in Modern you're used to doing it on your end step, but in Legacy you see it more in your upkeep since you don't have to pay life for shock lands. And this, you want to make sure you have more mana available in case Harlan wanted to try and respond and do something. You have a little bit more agency.
Right. One thing you are seeing with lists face up, there's no one really playing around Stifle this weekend, despite them both being Delver decks, neither player registering the card. So fetch lands get to be max valued a little more here. But nobody with threats on the board just yet. You have to figure that's good for Austin Collins. Or rather, sorry, for Harlan. His deck going a bit bigger on the curve.
It just means that Collins isn't dying either. It can be good for both of them. It's less good for Collins, but it can be good for it.
Yeah. Harlan picking up Council's Judgment, a 4th land. And no one really blinking just yet.
Right, and this is a little bit rough for Collins. You don't want to just not play cards. He didn't make a land drop there, and he didn't really get to do very much. And Harlan's content to just sit back and develop his mana while building towards his Jace the Mind Sculptor, Batterskull, etc.
Yeah, when we look at cards that get worse as the game goes on, Harlan has 2 copies of Daze in his deck, and to a point, 3 copies of Spell Pierce that will get worse as we go on. But when we look at Austin's deck, he has a full 4 days to go, and then has cards like Chain Lightning, which may or may not play as we get later on in the game. They are Lava Spikes, but they don't fight well over key cards.
They do kill Jace the Mind Sculptor.
They do. Interestingly, in the matchup, yeah, they can if but Harlan still gets a Brainstorm out of the deal. They're still decent.
Exactly. It doesn't feel great, but having more of those cards actually kind of requires Harlan to he doesn't get as much immediate value off of Jace the Mind Sculptor because it sort of prices fear into rolling up Jace rather than just brainstorming as soon as it hits the battlefield.
Again, it feels like, as is often the case in Delver mirrors, the Delvers are some of the worst cards each player has.
Right. It doesn't get you any value other than dealing damage, which Collins is interested in, but if you don't have many ways to protect it, then it's a little bit iffy at first.
So Harlan uses a fetch land to reset the deck, now brainstorms. Picks up a Jace, a Delver, a Swords to Plowshares. Batterskull already in his hand. Ideally, he finds that off a Stoneforge and puts it back in the deck, and that's exactly what he's going to do.
Exactly. You don't want to expose your Batterskull to a counterspell.
Right.
And until the very late stages of the game, it's kind of susceptible to getting Spell Pierce, Dazed, and so on.
And that was all in the end step, so Harlan will shuffle away the Batterskull, getting another basic land.
Big fan of those signed islands. Is that Mark Pool?
Those are Mark Pool Islands. Did a lot of the original artwork islands.
Mm-hmm.
And Ponder. Both players with plenty of cantrips being cast. We'll see when someone wants to make a move. It looks like another Ponder, a Spell Pierce, and a True Name Nemesis are the top 3 for Harlan.
Harlan's starting to have a glut of very powerful resources.
Right.
He has the ability here to just take, say, the Spell Pierce or the True Name Nemesis and then shuffle away the cards if he doesn't want them with his Windswept Teeth.
Yeah, what I like is Harlan's first 4 lands were 1 basic land and 3 fetches. And Harlan has done a great job on these last turns of a Brainstorm, and a Ponder to just maximize the value of each of these fetch lands.
Right, and in a lot of ways it's just giving a bunch of virtual card advantage, where even if
Right.
he isn't doing anything like divination, or that is real card advantage, he's got to sculpt what he has access to in the way that he's planning to play this game so well.
Spell Snare hits a young Pyromancer from Austin. He'll Spell Pierce back.
This is a nice Spell Pierce. So Harlan kept the top 2 cards of his deck and then didn't shuffle away with Windswept Teeth. So the implication here is that Fear wants those cards.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? So what Fear did with the Ponder was he took the 1 out of the 3 he wanted and then put the other ones back.
Well, he took the one that he could use immediately in Spell Pierce, but he wants that True Name Nemesis eventually, but he just knew he wasn't going to cast True Name Nemesis this turn. And so his thought was, I'll just do it in a moment.
So it looks like he lets the Pyromancer resolve and then goes for Swords to Plowshares. You're right, he is protecting that fetch land. He doesn't want to shuffle just yet. Does Austin continue to fight? Now if he wants to protect his Pyromancer with other spells, he will get elemental tokens.
It'd be great to see something like a Daze from Collins here to continue pressuring that Windswept Teeth.
It is good. It does open the window, though, for Harlan to hit True Name Nemesis on the return. Austin has to be careful here.
Right. So the thing about the True Name Nemesis is without any of the equipment involved, you're kind of just able to race it in general as long as you can play something. So the Pyromancer's able to go around it with all of its tokens, or all of your lightning bolts are able to just race it.
All right, so we did the counter war there. Austin choosing not to fight over the Swords to Plowshares. That's because he wanted to fight back over the next spell, and the next spell is True Name Nemesis. Harlan goes for it. Austin forces. Harlan forces back. Is there more? Austin has a Daze, but Harlan has that Windswept Teeth still hanging out. And the counter war is over, and Harlan gets the 3-1.
And this is something that Collins is going to need to find a threat to be able to present his own pressure back as soon as possible.
Yeah, his own true name Nemesis. That would be great. But he's got limited time to find it.
Right, a true name Nemesis. A Terramander is something that races it pretty effectively. He has a ton of cards in his graveyard at this point.
Yeah, he can't remove it at all. Not out of Izzet.
Exactly. There's just the ways that you deal with things are damage, and protection tends to line up pretty well against damage.
So, does not have a return answer right away, so Austin has to brainstorm for it, and here we will go. Draws 3, and I don't think he's found it just yet. He's going to have to make do here.
One of the nice things about this Izzet deck is because it has all these chain lightnings, all these lightning bolts, there's even a point where you can catch back up if you end up a bit behind from the clock. Let's say he takes 2 hits from this true name Nemesis. That's just 2 lightning bolts worth of clock time.
Yeah, his brainstorm has found a chain lightning, so you're thinking, yeah, you take, maybe he keeps the chain lightnings and just starts throwing them upstairs?
Right, and that's mostly going to come down if he can't develop a threat that lets him catch up a bit with the true name Nemesis, because he does want to go ahead and try to answer things like Stoneforge Mystic with those cards so Batterskull doesn't come into play and start letting things get out of control. But it is something that'll let him catch back up. He's not just dead in the water like we saw out of the Sultai deck before that just didn't have any kind of reach.
Austin finds a threat. It is Delver of Secrets. He makes a Wooded Foothills so he can reset after the brainstorm. But he's under the clock. He needs these threats to stick around, and we'll see if they do. Back over to Harlan we go. Right now it's 20 and 16. We're going to finally see some action on the life totals here as Harlan casts Ponder. A Stoneforge Mystic in the holdings. That's not too bad.
No, at this point, Fear is fairly ahead on the battlefield, so anything that allows him to press that advantage is very good for him, because Collins is having to play catch-up right now.
And he chooses Wasteland. Stoneforge is the second card down. He wastes away Austin's Volcanic Island, swings in for 3. And with Daze and Spell Pierce in hand, he may just pass back. And that is what he'll do. Austin transforms Delver off Daze. Now we'll see if he actually wants to draw it. My guess is no.
Pretty unlikely.
But he does.
Okay, so the draw here is that Austin has the ability to set up situations where he, say, Harlan casts another true name Nemesis with 3 of his lands.
Right.
Collins can then Wasteland Windswept Teeth, force Harlan to fetch, and then in response to the fetch land, daze the true name to counter it.
Makes sense. Right now, it's 3 for 3. Austin does hit back with Delver.
Right, and this is the type of situation where even though he's a turn, quote-unquote, behind, because of the fetch lands that Fear has had to crack this game, and because of the drawback of Swords to Plowshares gaining Collins' life, he's still actually ahead in this race.
Right. See if he can hang on to it is going to be the key as Austin passes. That was Stoneforge Mystic that Harlan knew about off the top of the deck. See if this forces some action from Austin. This is a card he's got to be concerned about.
You have to answer the Stoneforge Mystic or you will lose the game.
If a GT makes it onto the battlefield and is equipped to the true name Nemesis,
it's over.
Yeah, there are no cards in Austin's deck that let him come back.
No, absolutely not. That's the situation where, you know, Umezawa's Jide could kill creatures, but even if it just gained 4 life a turn,
yeah, he doesn't
probably couldn't race that.
Yeah, we mentioned that there's no removal for True Name. There's no main in deck removal for GTA either. And the GTA is now in the hand. It's close to lights out.
Right, without anything like a Braid going on, it's just very unlikely that Collins is going to be able to race this GTA unless he can do something to put the game out of reach right now.
Yeah, he does not have any in the main. Now when we get to the sideboarded games, he has those. But this game, he'll go for Brainstorm. And it's hard, right? Because if he wants to counter this GTA, he has to use a burn spell on Stoneforge Mystic, which feels really bad on this board.
So theoretically, there are a few ways that Collins can still win from here. If he has, say, a red source and 3 lightning bolts, he can punish Fear if he ends up having to fetch.
Okay.
And just you deal 3 with the Insect Elaboration, puts Harlan to 10, and then you say Chain Lightning and then bolt, and then if this fetch land happens, you bolt again.
Okay.
And you can use Wasteland to sort of force him into cracking that Windswept Teeth. Or you can just go ahead and use one of the bolt effects on this Stoneforge Mystic, which also forces the Windswept Teeth fetch in order to cast and equip Umezawa's Jitte. Or you can just let the Stoneforge Mystic do its thing and then use Daze to just force Fear to tap an extra land, which knocks him off balance to actually equip that Umezawa's Jitte next turn. So this game is not completely over just yet. Collins does need to find a plan that lets him actually just cross the finish line before that True Name Nemesis connects holding it.
Two cards back from Austin. He does have at least one of those red spells. Chain Lightning in the hand. Wants to draw one of the Brainstorm cards back, which he will do. Swings for 3. Fear to 10. And he's going to Chain Lightning the Stoneforge. Going to try to fight over the Jitte on the stack.
Do you think Fear is going to pay 2? Red? In order to throw the Chain Lightning back?
He would. Spell Pierce from Harlan. Just wants to get tag some of Austin's mana.
This is a good Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
Harlan also has a Daze in hand. What Harlan's likely trying to line up here, since he knows about that Daze, is putting it in a situation where Collins dazes and then Fear can just use his own Daze to counter back. Right. And then replay the land in order to just go ahead and equip the Jitte that way.
So big moment here. If Harlan tries for the Jitte, there's going to be a counter war, and if Harlan wins it, the game should come with.
Exactly, and if Harlan does have that Daze, just a land drop here is going to be good enough and let him equip that Jitte.
Here's Umezawa's Jitte. It's Force of Will pitching Daze from Austin. This was his only answer. Yeah, so he did have it protected. Can Harlan stop it? No, we can't. Jitte's in the graveyard. We're still going.
Oh my gosh, what a draw.
But 10 for both, so Austin's kept the race even. It's still not great. He's still behind. Harlan down to 7.
Collins knew this top card, decided to keep it.
Now this is interesting. Austin fetches to 9 here. That is not free at all.
No, it is not. That is something that actually puts, I believe, Fear ahead on the race by a turn.
It does. Does it for a basic island. So there's got to be a card worth fetching for.
True Name Nemesis.
I'll take that one. That is Austin's play. So he may be able to race back. We will see.
With this on the battlefield, Fear isn't able to crack this fetch land anymore.
But he drew Stoneforge Mystic. But there's no Jitte anymore.
That also doesn't block either of these creatures.
No, Harlan has a Council's Judgment in hand, but he has to fetch to cast it. So he'd go to 6. He'd Judgment one of the creatures and be going to 3 on the following turn. It's a little close.
It's the kind of
he's going to do it.
You have to. You absolutely have to. This is a spot where you know you can't win this race, so you need to answer the True Name, then go to 3 off this Insect Elaboration and hope to just draw some way to deal with the Insect Elaboration and have Collins brick.
Harlan does that down to 6. Judgment takes care of, gotta imagine, True Name Nemesis.
What is he gonna vote for?
And now it's 6 for both, but Harlan's a turn behind. Spell Snare in hand, see if that one matters. He's down to 3 on the attack. Has Austin done it? Spell Snare and Stoneforge Mystic, Harlan's hand, neither of those matter. Draws for the turn, top card is a land. That's not gonna do it, it's Tundra. Daze, Spell Snare, and oh my goodness,
what
Austin Collins picks up the win.
What a monster. You can see the smile on his face. He knows. He knows he won that game.
He stole one there. That was unreal. And that's how you get to be the 1 seed at the tournament. Austin Collins picking up the game number 1.
What a game from Collins.
Yeah.
That was just, I want to go back to how long before he went before actually developing any kind of threat onto the battlefield. And he did all of it to kind of just maneuver the game to a point where he checked some of the more important cards. He knew what to fight over. He went only after True Name, and then making sure Stoneforge Mystic didn't make the Umezawa's Jitte uncounterable, and then saved a Force of Will for that Umezawa's Jitte, hit it with a Brainstorm, knew when it was going to come. That was just very well navigated on Collins'
And Harlan was playing with a bit of fire that game, so he felt pretty ahead. He had that Council's Judgment most of the game, but he didn't cast it because he didn't want to crack the fetch land for second white. And he did end up getting punished at the end for saving it.
Absolutely. There's certainly a point where, you know, if both of Colin's creatures are quote-unquote unblockable, then it doesn't really matter whether it's True Name Nemesis or Insect Aberration. All True Name Nemesis has on Aberration is that you can't Swords to Plowshares it.
Exactly.
But if the Insect Aberration deals, 9 extra points of damage in the meantime, what
difference does it make?
Exactly, thank you.
Yeah. So let's look at some sideboards. I'm going to start with Austin Collins's. It's a pretty clean one. Some 3s and some 2s. He has a Braid, Blood Moon, Pyroblast, Electrickery, Flusterstorm, Surgical Extraction.
So the cards here that you're going to be looking at are Pyroblast is a big one.
Love it. It's a blue deck.
Exactly, and that's one of his only answers to True Name Nemesis, which is kind of one of the matchup-defining cards here. And then you could also make a pretty strong case for Flusterstorm because this is one of the best ways to protect your own spells from counter magic.
Now, you mentioned a Braid in Game 1, saying that Austin had when he could remove equipment, but you didn't mention it as something he wants to board in.
It is something that he wants to board in here. It answers both the Stoneforge Mystic as well as the equipment that it's able to put onto the battlefield.
And that's me good enough. It also answers Delver of Secrets if it's still in the deck.
It's fairly unlikely that that's going to be the case. Harlan may want to do that with him on the play, just taking a more aggressive posture. But his deck is so favored in the longer games that he wants to be playing anyway, that he's probably going to shave some of his punk you out of the game cards.
All right, so Harlan's side, Containment Priest, Flusterstorm, Surgical Extraction, Disenchant, Back to Basics. It's a lot of reactive things. He does have a Celestial Purge, Engineered Explosives, Second Council's Judgment, third True Name Nemesis, and a 1 Gideon Ally of Zenda cards. A lot of big stuff. In a Delver Mirror, there's only so much that you can take.
Right, and honestly, this Delver deck, the Azorius Delver deck, lines up pretty well just naturally against the Izzet Delver deck, so there's not too much that he's looking to change here. Most of what he might end up looking to do is bring in things like Council's Judgment to answer Colin's True Name Nemesis, his own another copy of True Name Nemesis, Flusterstorm. Again, very good at forcing your own threats onto the battlefield because it's a nigh uncounterable dispel, sort of, whenever fighting a counterspell fight. But past that, he's kind of just trying to keep his deck mostly the same.
Yeah, now do you think Harlan keeps his Delvers in?
It's pretty unlikely. That's just something where you're not the aggressor in this matchup from the Azorius Delver side. You're even probably looking to bring in something like Engineered Explosives because it answers Delver of Secrets and Terramander in a 2-for-1 fashion, and then it mops up all the tokens from a young Pyromancer as well.
Yeah, if that gets out of control, it can still play. So Austin up 1-0. We do have some matchup results. So the 4 versus 5 matchup between Rich Callie and Aiden Breyer, our 9-0 from yesterday. Aiden Breyer, he is out. Rich Callie on Izzet Delver advances to the semifinals, where he will face the winner of this one. So if Austin picks up the second one, we will have a mirror in the semis. The other one, and this one goes definitely different than we expected here. David Long on Golgari Depths, a 2-0 winner over Jordan Goodwin. I can't be that surprised. It's David Long, though it wasn't what we thought a bad matchup where he was on the draw.
Right, and it could just be a spot where Goodwin had some hands that didn't quite line up. You're a little bit at the mercy of the top of your library sometimes, and it looks like Long was able to just punish him for those. It's pretty easy to do that when you just put 20 power onto the battlefield.
If you haven't checked out the sale at Star City Games, make sure that you get a chance to. We have hundreds of singles on sale each week. And the sale is going hundreds of new ones right now through the end of today. So make sure to check it out before those go away. StarCityGames.com/sales. Sales singular. Leave the S off. It'll work better.
But leave the go at the beginning of the URL.
That doesn't matter.
It is go.starcitygames.com.
I'm typing it in right now. Oh, wow. I just typed it in without the go. It's right here.
Look.
That's crazy.
Look,
Who
man,
knew?
I'm just reading the ad.
Who knew? Look at all these things on sale. You can get just wow. This must be a different sale.
You're mad with power.
I can get this Emancipation Angel.
You've a tablet for one day, and all of a sudden you're just surfing the internet while we're on
Pull
the air.
from tomorrow. That draws as many cards as you want.
-1.
Well, you have to discard. It still draws it. You just have to discard.
You know what? You're so right, Matthias. You are just
when I have
correct.
my lore scale Coatl, I still get the counter.
Is it Coatl? I've always pronounced it Koshal.
It's definitely Coatl.
Oh no!
Definitely.
I started pronouncing it that way when I was 15, to be fair, and it's just kind of stuck.
They're all No, they're like Aztecan words. No, for real.
I believe you.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
a
was
flop.
quiet because I don't have a good response. I believe that you're correct. You don't have to sell me on this, Matthias.
Yep,
I'm
all right,
already
all right.
buying at go.starcitygames.com/sale.
Harlan starts out here. Engineer explosives on 1 preemptively. Gets it down off basic planes for game 2.
Lets you slip it through days, spell pierce, and so forth.
Sure. That's some pretty commons, though, right? Saying, whatever your hand is at, I want the EE on 1.
Right, and Harlan only wants time, and a lot of Colin's best draws against Harlan are going to involve some quantity of 1-drops.
Oh, I guess he can't. I was thinking, what about True Name? But he actually can't set it on 3 in his deck.
Nope.
Okay, never mind. 1 sounds great. I like the play. I'm in now.
Always been an EE on 1 fan.
Well, I was just thinking, hey, there's True Names. This is a way to answer it. It's like, no, it's not a way to answer it, is it? Both players make some lands, and now Wasteland takes care of the volcanic island. And will Harlan make a play? He just might.
Time for Stoneforge Mystic or a cantrip.
Time for a cantrip. Big plays.
Or a Stoneforge Mystic.
Stoneforge Mystic seems nice. I guess I can't be too mad at a cantrip either. Cantrips are always nice.
Or a cantrip.
It's a ponder. Top 3 here for Harlan. Swords to Plowshares, Tundra. Got one other hiding out there. He'll draw the swords for this turn. We'll see with that Flooded Strand just how many of these he wants. Looks like he does want the second one, which was another ponder. So,
Austin Collins' Wastelands this game have really just been putting emphasis on the wastes here.
Yeah. Ooh, that was nice. That is exactly what they are. Misty Rainforest found a ponder for Harlan. It was Land, Brainstorm. We'll see if he keeps all of them. I guess with the way this game's turning out, lands seem pretty good.
Oh, Harlan is very close to just casting a 5-mana Force of Will.
He is exactly 1 away.
Oh, very close, yeah.
Has the Tundra in his hand as well. And Austin passing no land drop. Harlan draws the Brainstorm.
Looks like Austin may have passed with 8 total cards in his hand.
Oh, okay. Well, we will step in there. Austin's going to have to let the judge know. Austin may just have to fix that by discarding. And it looks like Wasteland was the discard. What do you make of that he didn't make the land drop?
He forgot.
Okay.
Literally. That is what I believe
fair enough.
happened. He didn't make a land drop that turn, then played 1.
Yeah, and Austin Collins, the judge has issued him a games warning. It's a game rule violation warning. It's the first one of the tournament, so no upgrade on that so far.
Yeah, it's easy for that to happen sometimes. You just look at the Wasteland on the battlefield when you knew you were going to play a Wasteland that turn, and you go, all right, cool, I did what I meant to do, and you pass turn, and then all of a sudden you see there's a Wasteland in your hand, and you go, oh, no.
I go, yeah, I was supposed to play that. I mean, the way the board looks here, I don't, there's nothing to Wasteland, but you wouldn't mind having a land. Austin fetches and Harlan brainstorms in response.
This is just, if Harlan wanted to brainstorm anyway or do something else, then this is just a good time to do it because Collins is going to have less mana available.
Okay. There's nothing like, we're not playing around stifles here or anything like that.
Exactly, and he knows that Collins doesn't want to crack this other fetch land in order to make Collins' brainstorm still be good.
Sure.
So this just sort of protects it from spell pierce.
And Austin finds the basic island. Do we have another winner? It is John Castagna, our Rakdos Reanimator player, winning the backup match. So he moves on to the semis where he'll face off against David Long. Delver of Secrets transforms into Insectile Aberration, but before it does, Swords to Plowshares from Harlan.
With all these red cards in Collins' hand, it's hard to imagine a fight ensuing.
So he uses swords there even though he had explosives on 1.
The idea there is you just want to be mana efficient for the most part and still have this engineered explosives to incentivize Collins not playing multiple creatures out.
Sure.
The threat of the engineered explosives is actually worth something. There's also a point where it gives Collins the opportunity to abrade engineered explosives. And if Collins does that, that's kind of a win for you from Fear's side of the battlefield, since you want your Batter Skulls and Umezawa's Jites to actually do their thing.
So it's a bit of a bait. He wants him to abrade it?
Right. You want to exchange this engineered explosives for something, but an abrade is a better card than the Delver of Secrets, and this still gives Fear the opportunity to get a 2-for-1 off of this engineered explosives later. There's also the point where Fear has so many spells in his hand that if he draws another spell, he would just have to discard step anyway.
That makes sense to me.
Did the other things not make sense to you, Matthias?
No, well, the one about the abrade, hold on, the one about the abrade implies that Austin Collins has to mess it up.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
He hasn't messed one up yet. I like giving my opponents rope, but I'm just not sure Austin would take it.
No, it's fine.
Brainstorm from Austin. He discarded again to hand size with Chain Lightning. So the Scalding Tarn is worth more than 3 damage.
Right. I don't care for discarding the Chain Lightning when you have that many red cards and Harlan's at 18.
You just want to start throwing them upstairs?
Oh. Always been a Lava Spike fan, Matthias.
Yeah. Now that there's a second Tarn, I mean, I guess he was prioritizing because he had Brainstorm in hand. He wanted to make sure he had a fetch land.
Right.
With 2 Tarns, I don't think we'll see him discard any more Chain Lightnings to hand size. I think they'll start. I'd like to see them start going upstairs.
See, on one hand, I would like to see them start going upstairs. On the other hand, him not doing that implies he's doing something right because it is Austin Collins.
Yeah.
So I'd like to figure out what exactly is going on.
Upkeep, he's going to crack his fetch land, but there was another Chain Lightning on top of the deck.
Wow. No respect for the Lava Spike.
We could be a third of the way to winning right now. And he didn't even find a mountain. It was just another island.
Disrespect.
No, this is the way to play it. What is his spell count? We look at the graveyard. I believe it's
2, 3?
Yeah, it's actually not that high, is it?
Yeah.
It's 3. There's a lot of lands there. Some more cantrips. Ponder now from Austin. And he'll ponder into with a Scalding Tarn, and again he says go. Harlan, despite the E, he actually is the first player to make a 1-drop. It's Delver of Secrets.
Whoa. Delver of Secrets already came down and got Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah. Oh, on this board.
I mean, yeah, if we just change what the word first means, I guess this is the first one.
Now, I wonder if Austin will make a 1-mana card into the board. Instead, he makes True Name Nemesis.
What is a 3-mana card if not just 3 1-mana cards?
Stapled together.
Exactly.
And that resolves back to Harlan. Now,
I believe Harlan has a Council's Judgment in hand in order to check this.
Yeah, I was going to say, he didn't put up much of a fight over it for a card that can matter so much in the matchup.
Right, and he's had Force of Will hanging out in his hand almost the entire game. So the idea here is that he would rather just try to convert this to Council's Judgment since it's a kind of clunky 3-mana card. He'd rather use that here.
Fetches for that second white mana source. And there is both players with full grips here playing for the long game.
That is a lot of blue cards in Harlan's hand.
This looks to be the Wasteland for the turn. He does not use it to deny mana. He's going to use it for Council's Judgment.
The Wastes mode.
This is an event. I think just on the weekend, Wasteland has been at a pretty big low for this tournament.
Right, tons of people using Back to Basics and Blood Moon, which is already punishing the basics, right, or non-basics, but that means that the decks that are succeeding are going to have high counts of basic lands.
Yeah, it feels like Wasteland is there to beat depths like cards like Golgari Depths, but as far as fair matchups, just wasting someone's mana, it's not the weekend to do it.
Right, the Delver decks have not been very good unless they had a ton of basics in their deck. So the kind of greedier 3 and 4 mana decks that we've seen that honestly were kind of fueled by Deathrite Shaman have just been getting punished out of the tournament. And so now as we get to the later rounds, the winner's metagame, Wasteland is not nearly as effective.
Council's Judgment is the play. See whether Austin can fight over it. It is 1 Scalding Tarn sacrificed. He has 2 mana up. Harlan has 2 mana at the ready to pay for a Spell Pierce, so Austin's going to need something a bit bigger if he wants to win this fight.
So many basic islands, so many artworks.
Spell Pierce is the play, but it's into 2 mana, so Austin knows that Harlan may just pay. He's got Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, Force of Will, so many options, and despite having 2 mana up, this is neat. Harlan pierces the Pierce.
He just wants the Council's Judgment to resolve because this True Name Nemesis is worth way more than the cards in Harlan's hand. So even though he could, effectively get a free card by just paying 1 more mana, making sure that he can continue fighting over this is important.
The trade happens. Now we're back down to the just Council's Judgment. Austin going to try again. We might see if it's something like Flusterstorm. Harlan, I believe, is ready to Flusterstorm it back.
Oh, right. This Council's Judgment
that.
is absolutely resolving. Harlan has a Flusterstorm and a Force of Will in hand. It's hard to imagine that this isn't getting through.
Yeah, Austin gonna Flusterstorm. This will be for some number of Storm copies. Doesn't really matter because Harlan's is for 1 more. Flusterstorm is almost uncounterable, except it's always countered by the next Flusterstorm. And that's going to do it. The exchange happens. Council's Judgment finally resolves after this counter war. And Delver attacks in for 1, Austin to 18. Both players had been near discarding to hand size, building up toward that play.
And now they're down to 4 cards still in the tank.
Yeah, Harlan still has 4. I believe Austin on 6. A lot of them are red spells.
Harlan has 17 from that fetch land.
Ooh, okay.
Turn off the clock. Unfortunately, Collins only has that 1 volcanic island.
Okay.
Does not look very good in the face of Fear's Wasteland here.
Wasteland's Harlan's Wasteland.
Looks very good in the face of Fear not having Wasteland anymore.
He wants to protect that red mana. That much makes sense. And we go into work with some red spells. He starts on the volcanic island. Lightning Bolt takes care of the Delver secrets.
You just want to make sure you're not going to die while you're spinning your wheels on these cantrips.
And Austin now will brainstorm. Finds a Daze, a Mountain, and another red card. Gonna have to keep some of those. But no replacement threat. Back to Fear we go. He draws Umezawa's Jite. And so Stoneforge was the will he cast. Wants to cast that one before he draws the Batter Skull as well.
Right, you want to make sure that you get some value off of this search ability.
Finds Batter Skull. Now, is this maybe one of those bait and switches where he gets the Batter Skull and then end step puts the Jite into play given the option?
Well,
he's not getting the option.
Summoning Sickness for now, and
it's never going to get to that point. Yeah, Austin had Lightning Bolts on end step, taking care of the 1-2. It's still a 2-for-1 for Fear. I'm sure he's happy with the exchange.
Right, and this is just playing into the Azorius deck's plan, where it just wants to 2-for-1 a bunch and eventually assume that its cards are going to be more powerful.
Yeah, once you sideboard out the Delvers, this really just feels like Stoneblade.
Exactly. And that's basically what we see going on here. It's an aggro deck versus a mid-range deck.
And I like this. While he's got some mana, Harlan just makes Umezawa's Jite. Nothing to put it on right now, but that's fine.
Fear with 7 cards in hand, it's better to just play this out than discard, especially when your Force of Wills in hand are going to probably take 2 cards each. You want to have as many as possible.
And I believe, checking hand size, yeah, he has a 7. Yep, that was his last one. Now he's at a full 7. Draws. Now that'll put him to 8. He'll have to do something. All his cards are reactive. He'll discard Spell Pierce. So he has 2 Force of Wills, 2 Swords to Plowshares, a Batter Skull, another Spell Pierce,
And even there, Fear's only option was really only casting this Batter Skull, but it's more important than the Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you have enough lands to resolve it.
Now, how do you feel about this? The end step, there was a Pteramander from Austin. Harlan did not end step Swords it.
No, this is a spot where he can do it on his turn if he wants, and he would rather just save his resources for other things at this point. Make Collins commit the mana to leveling up, or adapting this Pteramander, rather.
The mana, I like that you put mana because it is 1 mana, and that's what he'll do.
I mean, I wasn't going to say manas.
He's going to tap those, he's going to tap them manas and turn it into a 5/5.
Now you're speaking my language.
And it becomes a 5/5. Ugh. This is rude. I guess he's trying to engineer explosives it.
Right, at this point,
I don't think he wants to swords it anymore.
exactly. You don't want Collins to just gain 5 life.
He takes the 5. All right.
Holding up mana at this point, you're not really under a ton of pressure. You can just wait, because if you crack the Engineer Explosives mid-combat, Collins can just play another 1-drop on his second main phase.
So you think we're going to see an end step explosives?
Exactly. It's just worth the 5 life to do it this way, because now if the Umezawa's Jite gets on the Stoneforge Mystic and Harlan gets to connect with it, then that Umezawa's Jite can basically check the rest of the 1-drops in Collins' deck.
Brainstorm from Austin. Full grip. But right now, all the control of the game is on Harlan's side. Seven-card hand, discarding to hand size, letting himself be hit for 5 off Pteramander. I like it.
Look, you just got to play careful sometimes.
And he's playing real careful. He did get punished for playing careful last game. He took some free hits, and then a series of draws actually caused him to lose the race.
That's true. It's way less likely to happen when he has all the counter backup that he does this game, as well as Batterskull, and it looks like an Umezawa's Jite that's going to connect.
Let's see, what does Austin want? After the Brainstorm, has a follow-up. We have a 3-mana card, perhaps True Name Nemesis. It's going to be a no, and Harlan just takes the 5. No Engineer Explosives, no Swords. Basic Island from Harlan. Land's got to be one of the draws he's looking for. And he says go. This is going to leave up that Stoneforge Mystic activation to get Batterskull into play.
Right, and this Batterskull is just able to race the Pteramander as is.
Yeah.
So the thought here for the Engineered Explosives and holding it may just be that, you know,
it
doesn't matter. If you're going to win the race anyway, force Collins to commit threats that would otherwise put him ahead in the race.
I am a little gun-shy, though, about going down to 7 on the attack. Austin does play a lot of 3-damage spells, and Harlan respects it. Here's Engineered Explosives.
Yeah, there's definitely a sort of this game of chicken here where you're like, all right, fine, I'll take it. I'll take it. Oh, okay, I won't take it.
Chain Lightning at Stoneforge Mystic. In response, Stoneforge Mystic activates. Puts that Batterskull into play. Only 2 mana up, though, if Austin has an Abrade. Harlan cannot save it.
On the bright side, Harlan has actual 6 counter spells in his hand.
Yeah, it's probably right. He'll have to find another way to save it. There is the Germ token. Holds the Batterskull. That's something that Austin really does need to take care of here.
True Name Nemesis does turn off Batterskull.
That's true. And here's True Name Nemesis. Or it's trying to be. Force of Will pitching Spell Snare. Harlan just unable to find a target for that. Eventually exiles it to the counter spell. Goes to 11. Counter spell fight number 2 here. Harlan won the first one at Daze. Harlan immediately pays for the Daze.
Not close.
And Austin's hand pretty land heavy. Does he have more counter magic? Harlan's hand is, I believe, still Spell Pierce, Force, and blue card. It's hard to see him losing this.
Right, and see, the idea here is this Pyroblast is something that Collins wants to use to just force more counterspells out of fear to convert this other Daze in his hand into some sort of value.
I actually have to correct myself. It was not another blue card, so Harlan can counter back with Force of Will, but he has to exile the Spell Pierce. This is his last counter. And Austin dazes again. Harlan can pay, but if Austin has one more card to play here, he is going to win this counter fight and have a true name Nemesis.
It's close, but it doesn't look like it's going to
he's
happen.
Out. He is out. And now Germ Token holding all this equipment is going to rumble into the red zone. Yeah, when you're a deck that's trying to play Chain Lightnings, that is not what you want to see.
Right, and now the Batterskull getting to untap his lands with his Batterskull on the battlefield.
It's not going anywhere.
Exactly. Well, it might go in his hand.
Okay. That's fine.
Exactly. It's not going anywhere permanently. That is bad for Fear.
4 life points moving over to Harlan's side, and now it's tied up at 13. 2 big counter wars this game, Harlan ending up on top in both of them, and that second one may just send us to a deciding game.
Right, that fight there was basically the deciding fight of this game. You know, it might take 3 or 4 more turns for it to actually end, but that was effectively the conclusion of this game. That was just a huge fight, and Collins came up just a little bit short.
Well, if he top decks on his 3rd true name Nemesis, I think that's the last thing he can do here. Because Harlan's hand is just 2 copies of Swords to Plowshares.
That's true. That does not quite get around true name Nemesis.
Yeah. That plus figuring it out from there, I think, is what Austin's going to have to find, but he's going to need it quick. That GT allows the +2/+2 means this is a 2-turn clock. And a swing again. Austin checks the life total. It's 13. He does have a braid. He'll abrade the GT. Responds. Harlan going to pump. It's better, more light. It's the same amount of life gain as life gain. But now he has an 8/8 Germ.
Maybe you would have liked to have seen this on Collins' turn a little bit more, just to make it so that pump wasn't worth as much. Oh, it looks like it might have been instep.
Okay, we'll confirm what the life totals are here. Yeah, the full 8 connected, Austin down to 5. Now he has Young Pyromancer to try to make some blocks, but as soon as he casts Preordain, Harlan is at the ready with one of his copies of Swords to Plowshares.
That's a blocker for the Batterskull, at the very least.
It's a turn. It's more looks at that 3rd true name Nemesis. And I'm not sure if Austin's going to top too much else. I'll stand corrected. He's got 2 cards he likes there. Tops both of them. Could be good things on the horizon for Austin. Back to Fear we go. Batterskull swings in. Token blocks, but Fear is up to 25. Austin has his work cut out for him. Starts with another Young Pyromancer. Ponders. Again, Harlan with Swords to Plowshares. Austin gets a blocker, but he loses another Pyromancer.
Well, both of those Swords to Plowshares have added up to an additional attack that this Batterskull has to do.
Yeah, 2 life off of each of them. You're right, so Austin's up to 9. That's going to play. And Ponder's going to be a lot of looks here. But if there's nothing he likes, he's going to have to shuffle. So other than that 3rd true name, is there anything else you see him drawing to?
Without finding a way to tap Harlan very low on mana, there just aren't that many great answers to the Batterskull itself. And even if you kill the Germ Token, that's another situation where Fear can just bounce and recast the Batterskull. So it would require Collins to do something to the effect of abrade the Batterskull and then counter it on the way back down.
How do you feel about Terramander? It is a 5/5.
That's true. That is something that's able to get around it. The biggest issue is it is bad against spot removal. Now that Fear has used both of the Swords to Plowshares, it's not completely out of the question to just stonewall it that way.
Yeah, the issue with the Terramander is that it sits around and blocks for a while, so Austin goes down to 5. But with life totals how they are, I don't know how Austin gets from that board state to a board state where he can attack.
Exactly. Fear just gets a ton of draw steps.
You know, and eventually he'll see Jace the Mind Sculptor. He'll see his own true name Nemesis, something that Austin has trouble dealing with.
Right, and, you know, honestly, now that we see these Delvers in Fear's deck still, it's possible he boarded out the Jace the Mind Sculptors because they're so bad against the likes of Spell Pierce, Daze, and so forth. He may just be trying to produce more things that can interact with creatures on the battlefield earlier in the game.
That actually makes a lot of sense. If he has Delvers, he probably doesn't have Jaces.
Exactly.
Keeping them both in is a strange middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Delver transforms into Insect Hal Aberration. Not sure Austin can attack yet. He is down to 5. Harlan has his own Delver Secrets as well.
Ponder's a reasonable start. The big issue here is if Fear puts Batterskull on that Delver of Secrets and it transforms, that's way bigger than Terramander and also forces this Insect Elaboration into a chump block mode, which means that Austin also can't attack here.
And True Name Nemesis doesn't stabilize either. Once you get a 8/7 Delver of Insect Elaboration, there just aren't ways for Austin to answer it.
Exactly. So the line here is likely going to end up being something to the effect of hoping the Delver of Secrets doesn't transform, and then if it does, you can bolt the Insect Elaboration.
Yeah.
But then you still have a 0 or a 4/4
right,
germ token.
because when you bolt in response to an equip, then when it doesn't work, it just goes back. The equipment stays on the first thing.
Exactly. It just counters the equip ability due to it not having a legal target anymore.
Harlan says go back over to Collins. So Harlan actually didn't attack there. He did not move the equipment.
No, and the idea here is you just want to keep pressuring with this Batterskull until you don't have to, because you don't want to lose this Insect Elaboration until you make Collins do something.
Yeah, so he's got Collins down to 1, continues to hit Harlan up 4, 4, 4. He's now at 37.
Right, and this is why he isn't moving the Batterskulls. He just doesn't have to. He's pulling further and further ahead of this game. When Collins is the aggressor in the matchup, the life total is what matters, and it's just how does Collins ever deal this much damage with a Batterskull on the battlefield?
And Harlan finds a Snapcaster Mage off that Brainstorm. It's just continues to accrue more resources. See how much longer Austin wants to play toward this ending, but if Harlan at 37, I just don't think he can deal this kind of damage.
It looks like he may have drawn a True Name Nemesis. We saw him put 3 lands to the side.
Yeah, that's his last copy of it. He will cast it. Now, Snapcaster Mage, I think, can answer it.
Ooh.
There is that Council's Judgment in the graveyard.
And Collins can't even have something like Force of Will to stop it anymore now that he's at 1.
Right. Oh, that's nice. Well, we'll see. Harlan's fetching down to 30, down to some number, 36.
Down to twice his starting life total.
Yeah. And back to Harlan we go. And we may still spinning with the cantrips.
You just want to cover your bases.
He's got a True Name of his own, a second Snapcaster Mage. It's really hard to see this going wrong.
Well, this game was close.
Yeah.
And now
it
is not.
And maybe you don't answer the True Name. Maybe you just play your own True Name Nemesis and say go. It's completely reasonable.
If you do that, Austin might attack with his True Name Nemesis.
That's true. And then he'll be at 33.
Listen, Harlan hates alliteration. 33 is his least favorite number.
And that's going to be the play. True Name Nemesis from Fear. It's lethal. Pyroblast from Collins. Snapcaster Mage back from Fear. Pyroblast on that. Daze on that. And we are headed to the third game.
Ooh.
As Harlan Fear evens things up against his teammate.
I want to point out how close that was to Collins actually coming back in that
last turn. Okay.
So that put Harlan down to 2 mana available. If Collins' last card in hand had been something that could stop that Daze somehow, and then he rips in a Braid on the Batterskull, all of a sudden he's way back in the game.
Because Harlan's tapped down. He doesn't have 3 mana
He doesn't
anymore.
have mana to get back the Batterskull, so all of a sudden it's just both players with Delvers.
So in Harlan's situation, maybe you just actually let yourself lose the counter war because Batterskull's more important?
That one's a little bit tough. I guess he could still pay for Daze, so there wasn't a way.
There's not a way that Austin can win the fight.
Right, yeah.
I guess if he can pay for Daze and Austin's at 1, there is no magic card for him to play around. So if he finds
Mind Break Trap.
Okay. Nice. All right. He did I was not in there.
With the face-up deck list, he just knew that the Mind Break Trap wasn't there.
They are going to head toward a third game. We are taking a peek at these sideboards again. It doesn't look like we've seen much at all in the way of sideboarding from Harlan.
No, most of his cards seem just fine. So he doesn't really need to switch up what he's doing that much.
No. And we mentioned before for Harlan Fear, this Delver deck, Azorius Delver, something that he works on. A lot of times he's known for playing his own brews in tournaments.
A Flooded Strand aficionado.
Yeah. Yeah, the kind of, you know, one of the Jeskai mages, but a lot of times he's a aggro Jeskai mage. He's not, you know, he's not going to register his colonnades with removal. It'll be like colonnades with Mantis Riders. Things like that. Or like...
No, he'll register his colonnades with electrolyzes.
Sometimes there's
he puts
threats.
Spell Queller in
There's
there.
threats, yeah. There's more creatures in there than you normally see.
Yeah, okay. Look, it's in a good way. It's in a good way, but he does really like his Geist of St. Traffs. That's the big one.
Right,
he has, what, 2 open wins with Jeskai now?
He does.
Yeah.
2 open wins of all time. He has 5 open top 8s. Looking for that 3rd win here. Member of Team Nova. So we do have a 3rd game. Austin will be back on the play.
And that's a very big deal. So one of the things that last game that probably changed the texture of the game in a big way was that turn 1 engineer explosives on 1 from Fear that Collins didn't really have any way to answer. You don't want to end up using one of your Abrades on it because you want to save those for Stoneforge Mystics, equipment, etc. But it did put Collins in a situation where he didn't really have the chance to develop more than one threat at a time, which just kind of puts you in a disadvantage against the Swords to Plowshares deck.
And it looks like some reboarding here, actually, from Austin Collins. So I do want to look at his options here. So looks like he did not Blood Moon. We saw Abrades out of the sideboard of 3 and 3 Pyroblasts. Is there anything else you think? And I guess 2 Flusterstorms. So he was on what appeared to be some number of each, could be up to 8 cards.
Right, and you know, honestly, there's a point where he may have had a bunch of Force of Wills in his deck because he was on the draw. And that's something where if you just don't have the mana advantage that comes with that you want for things like Days, then Force of Will is going to be a little bit better since you're up a card by virtue of being on the draw. And Harlan does have these more powerful cards that 2-for-1ing yourself with a Force of Will is not going to be as bad. But for the most part, he's probably not looking to change too awful much, probably just some cosmetic shifts.
It's just some individual numbers. It did look that game that both players had still kept in their Delvers. On Austin's side, a couple things he can cut. A Forked Bolt, a Vapor Snag, those can leave. And actually, Force of Wills, we didn't see as many of them on Austin's side as we did on Harlan's.
Right, and a lot of that is just because he is trying to be more aggressive. He can't really afford to cut too many of his Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning effects, so his blue card count for Force of Will is actually fairly low.
Both players on 7 here. This is our last quarterfinal. Winner going to face Rich Callie in the semifinals, but it is basic lands for each Austin with that Delver.
This is exactly how he wants to start. He has a 1-drop and it's off of a basic land. Yep. So this means that he's not going to have the same mana problems that he did the first couple of games, and he's able to start applying pressure while Fear is trying to develop.
Now, no transform on the first turn here, as Austin just has to take the draw naturally.
In most cases, that's actually probably a good thing for Collins, right? It helps him hit his early land drops. It lets him play other 1-drops or his true name Nemesis.
Yeah, a lot of times the cards, depending on what he's looking for, the cards that won't transform are things he needs in the early game. Now, Austin's hand's an interesting one as he plays Scalding Tarn. It looks like 3 copies of Force of Will in the opener.
Oof. Oof. And that's a situation where he realized that he just wants to make sure he can answer Fear's more powerful cards, even if it costs him 2 cards for 1 card.
I don't mind it entirely, because it looks like he's going to go for a turn 2 Young Pyromancer, and with this kind of board, a bunch of free counterspells can go a long way.
Exactly. This is the type of situation where he just wants to pressure Fear as best he can.
And Fear recognized that he uses a Force of Will of his own, pitching Brainstorm. It's our first counter fight of the game. Will Austin fight back? He will. It is Force of Will pitching. I believe a True Name Nemesis. A lot of respect there.
That's a sign.
Yeah, no elemental. That was the Pyromancer was still on the stack, but we go back to Harlan.
Harlan choosing to Force of Will here rather than using a Swords to Plowshares or something to that effect is also a pretty big sign.
Harlan has in hand Daze and Stoneforge Mystic. I don't know if he has the white source for Stoneforge, though. He's got a Wasteland, and no, there is a Tundra, so he can make the 1-2. But he's moved Ponder up to the front of his hand, deciding how he wants to deal with this. It will be the 1-2.
And at this point, the question for Fear was effectively if he wanted to try and find answers via that Ponder, or if he wanted to develop onto the battlefield with Stoneforge Mystic.
And Surgical Extraction from Austin, not a card we had talked about during sideboarding. It does transform the Delver.
Right, and that may be what he looked to bring in this game, is he realized that he just needs to try and get mana advantages and pick apart very specific cards. So if all of a sudden Harlan just has 0 Swords to Plowshares in his deck, for example,
that's pretty good.
That's a much harder game for Fear to win. And even though it's normally worse in these fair matchups, if there's one card that you have to lean on very hard, if it's just not in your deck anymore, that's big.
Do you think Swords to Plowshares is the card he's going for?
That's one of the more likely cards here. That, or maybe some of the counter magic that we saw Harlan lean into a little bit. Those are the big things as well.
Collins will Brainstorm, gets him a elemental token. Now back on the Stoneforge Mystic, Harlan decided to grab the Batter Skull over the Umezawa's Jite on this board.
I believe the Jite was already in his hand, but it's a little hard to tell.
Right.
Keeps his cards close to his chest, you know?
Well, we may not get to find out, as Stoneforge Mystic is tagged by a Lightning Bolt, second elemental to Austin, and he crashes in for 5. Harlan down to 13. Yeah. This is how Austin has drawn it up with his hand. Just 1 card left.
Yeah, and this is the first game in this quarterfinals that we've really seen Collins get to do the Is It Delver thing, where he just kind
aggro.
of plays some creatures out and then disrupts while he applies pressure.
This is Stoneforge Mystic, and you're absolutely right. There is the Jite in Harlan's hand, so he has will fail to find, declining the trigger.
Missed his trigger.
Yep. Has one land up, deciding right now whether he wants to Ponder. And it looks like he will. And they're repausing as Austin selling the Daze if he doesn't actually have it.
Right, and it could be a spot where he was just trying to make it look as if he had something else. I believe his last card in hand is a known Surgical Extraction.
Oh, you're right. That was what he transformed off of. So I guess the thought was whether he wanted to Surgical anything in response to the Ponder. Maybe if he really doesn't want Harlan drawing, say, Force of Will.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can really think of off the top of my head here, but it's hard to imagine that's that important.
I think you're okay with him drawing Force of Will.
Exactly. Yeah. You're behind on the battlefield. The counterspells aren't the important thing.
And a swing, and I love this from Austin. Young Pyromancer are going to get in on the attack as well. Be happy to trade with the Stoneforge Mystic.
Exactly. When it's about to put this Batter Skull into play, you just really would love that trade to happen.
Harlan down to 7. He will cast Delver of Secrets. Potential blocker. The white mana is at the ready. Batter Skull is in the hand.
This could end up going back the other way. You know, this was a great start from Collins, but this is bad.
If Batter Skull lifelink trigger happens, if Jite gets counters on it, I don't know what Austin does about it. What he does here, though, is he dazes the Delver just to get another token. And then it daze again. What happened to this?
Oh, he may have fetched.
He fetched before the Surgical.
Oh, no, he brainstormed. Okay. It's hiding under the Lightning Bolt there.
Okay. Gets 2 more elementals. Those are both the cards in his hand. And the second daze is really interesting because I'm not sure that Harlan wants to.
You can't pay for it, right?
Yeah, if he pays for it, he can't make Batter Skull. And Harlan decides that is not a price he's willing to pay.
Oh, and if Collins...
If he finds a removal spell, if he finds a braid, if he finds a braid specifically, this is lethal.
Exactly, and this is a spot where, let's see, you can also, he's just a point shy of a situation where he could attack with everything, then when the Batter Skull blocks, bolt the creature that the Batter Skull blocks to turn off lifelink.
If he can brainstorm into, we're now looking at Lightning Bolt lines. If he brainstorms into multiple Lightning Bolts, if he gets something with the blocker, maybe some of this works. But right now he just attacks for 3. Harlan down to 4, but some equipment is entering the battlefield.
Oh, is that just 2 lands in Colin's hand here? We know one of them's an island.
Yeah, there's just 1 draw step. Here's the Batter Skull, the Germ Token, and Harlan gets to untap. There's no Abrade, and he's just going to continue to press the advantage. Casts Umezawa's Jite, equips the Jite to the Germ Token, swings.
What a swing.
Yeah, and if they disconnect, it's 4 damage. Harlan goes up to 8, and here come Jite counters. And this is a disaster for Austin. He got so close to the finish line, but this is where things fall apart.
He just was a little shy, didn't quite have the tools to get there. Could put him to, honestly, a virtual 1 in a lot of ways, but Stoneforge Mystic is just really showing its power here.
And Austin draws his hand as 3 lands. Things have taken a turn for the worse. The Insectile Aberration is gone. He has no way to deal damage. Harlan is at 8, and the life total only goes up from here. And for a 1 seed, no plays that he has on the board except for passing. And Harlan just needs to make sure that he holds on here, and it is True Name Nemesis. Another card that's not going to be answerable here. The Germ Token swings in. Austin down to 10. And this is the cleanup crew. He stayed alive at 4 life, now up to 12. The Jite's on the True Name Nemesis. The Batter Skull's there, and there is the handshake. Battle between teammates lives up to its billing, but at the end it is Harlan Fear. Your 8 CD takes the win, moves on to the semifinals.